Hi, everybody. One of my followers asked me a question: how to practice Christianity and remain in harmony with the African traditional religion. Starting from the Congo spiritual culture, we will show that one of the elements that have characterized the Congo initiates since their meeting with the Christian current is their belief in the existence of an area of convergence between their traditional religion, the Bukôngo, and Christianity.
Welcome to the channel Zilalowa of Dr. Yaluka. To begin, please subscribe and tick the notification bell in order not to miss our videos. Thank you for joining.
This convergence allows them to use a theological language common to the two spiritual currents without betraying their holy ancestors. The conviction of this convergence is reflected in the experience of the Congo prophetess Ndôna Béatrice, who changed her name to Kimpa Vita, has to say Kimpa kiokio, bêto, tuavita, which means we were the first in this game of a religion based on the presence of the divinity in human beings. This conviction can also be read from Simon Tibango, the Congo prophets, who enjoin us to read the Bible and retain the spiritual principles it contains, because he adds, the fifth must be taken hand in the bag. Thus, well before Kalala Omotunde, Kimbangu already sustained that the Bible is a plagiarism of Black teachings. Now, the great Egyptologists supported this very same assertion by demonstrating that the Roman copied the holy texts of our ancestor in the library of Alexandria, and after making copy, they burned the library. Foucault, the first who had a contact with the initiates of the Limba, the first scholar, wrote the astonishment of the initiate of the Limba in seeing that what they have been taught in the forest is heard in the church also. Today, the Kemetic cosmological arguments has an independent systematic natural theology allows us to demonstrate this belief that animates the Congo initiates since the 15th century, the existence of an area of convergence between their religion and Christianity. So let us first expose summarily the Kemetic cosmological argument. I'm an individual being, you are an individual being. Therefore, this temporal universe is an aggregate of individualities. Thus, it is an individual entity. Being an individual entity, this temporal universe has an individual cause. an individual creator. Now, the individual nature of this creator begs the existence of other similar entities, similar creator, who might not yet created the universe. So we have effective and potential creators. Here, let's take an hypothesis. The hypothesis is that every creation exists in its creator. Now, if we take an entity which include all the money, all the potential and effective creators, all the children of God, we have an entity which is the greatest possible being. Because any universe we can imagine, any creation we can imagine will exist in its creator, and the creator will be in this entity. So this entity is the greatest possible being. Therefore, it is God the Most High. Then it follows that God the Most High must be immutable and indivisible. If he were not, then there must be a principle of his immutability and divisibility, and that principle must be greater than him, which is impossible. So God is immutable and indivisible. God is also transcendent. By transcendent, we know that God is above everything, but due to his absolute indivisibility, by transcendence, we mean that God doesn't know evil. If God knew evil, due to his absolute indivisibility, in him to know and to be are the same thing. What God knows is God what he is. Therefore, if God knew evil, God would be infinitely good and infinitely bad, which is impossible. So by transcendence, we mean that God doesn't know evil. Now, we have seen that each Son of God expresses an individuality included in God. And God is indivisible. Therefore, each Son of God, effective or potential, expresses the fullness of God, but in an individual manner. This fullness of God we call the Logos. Therefore, we have demonstrated already the existence of three entities: the Most High God, the creators, and the Logos, which is the manifestation of the fullness of God in the children of God. Now, the question is, where does our temporal universe exist? Does it exist in God the Most High or outside of Him? It cannot be in God the Most High, otherwise at the moment of creation, God will change because something new will appear in Him. Now we have seen that God is absolutely immutable. It cannot be also outside of God. If it were, then added to God, it will result in an entity greater than God, which is also impossible. Therefore, the temporal universe being neither in God nor outside of God, it is in the temporal consciousness of the Creator, which is the proof of the validity of our hypothesis. It follows from this that the temporal universe is only a perception, a limited perception of the celestial reality. Now, the celestial reality is the only reality. Because if there were another reality, that reality added to God will result in an entity greater than God, which is impossible. So God is the only reality. The temporal universe is only a limited perception of that reality. Everything that is in the temporal universe, everything good in the temporal universe is only a limited manifestation of the celestial reality. And the celestial reality are manifested in the temporal realm, but in a limited way. So the celestial divinities are manifested in the temporal realm as limited divinities or holy ancestors. Now, there is already at this level a convergence because the Kemetic cosmological argument has established deductively the existence of a most high God who is transcendent, effective and potential creators, the children of God, the creator of this temporal universe, the existence of the Logos or the manifestation of the fullness of God in each child of God, and the temporal divinities who are only limited manifestation of the celestial one. Now, this theism is exactly the theism of the African traditional religion as it is also seen in the Bible. First of all, we have the transcendent most high. In Bukôngo, he is called Zambi Ampongo Tulendo. And due to his transcendence, true Kôngo initiates never address their prayer directly to him. In ancient Egypt, in Memphis, he was called the Soul Lord. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, he is called One Lord. Soul Lord in the Book of the Pyramid, One Lord in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. You agree with me that it is the same expression, Soul Lord, One Lord. And prayers in ancient Egypt were never addressed directly to him because he is transcendent. And we see the same schema in the Bible. In Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 13, it is said of God the Most High that his eyes are too pure to see evil. And Jesus, the Christian Master, enjoins us while praying to address our prayer not to the Most High God, but to the Father which are in heavens, heavens in plural, which means in the temporal realm. The Transfiguration shows that he was addressing his prayer to Moses and Elijah. Second point of convergence, the multiplicity of creators. Sheikh Anta Diop, in his book about the interiority of the Negroid civilization, says that in Asia, there were the notion of the multiplicity of the universes, the multiverse. So this implies the existence of many creators in the religion of ancient Egypt. Now, we see the same doctrine in the Bible. It is, we can read in 1 Colossians chapter 16, in him, in the firstborn, were created all things. In the firstborn in singular, were created all things. Now, there are three possibilities to understand the firstborn here. It can be the Christ, it can be Jesus, it can be the Creator. Now, let us turn to Hebrew chapter 12, verse 23, where we read, the firstborns in plural, inscribed in heavens in plural. So here, the expression firstborn is in plural. Therefore, it cannot be the Christ. Otherwise, we must have many Christs, which is impossible. It cannot be also Jesus. Thus, it is the Creator, the creators. So the Bible speaks here of the multiplicity of the creators, of the multiplicity of the universes. And we have the proof in Colossians because it is said, in him were created. And the Kemetic cosmological argument demonstrated to you and me that creation is in the Creator. So there is a perfect convergence here. And we have also the notion of the Logos, which is the manifestation of the fullness of God in the children of God. In Bukôngo, this notion is understood at the celestial level as being Binanza, which is the force that governs the universe. In ancient Egypt, it is called Ptah in Memphis. Now, in the temporal level, Pinanza becomes Himalungila, and in ancient Egypt, Ptah becomes Horus. And one who is vested by the Kibalungila is a Malungila. In ancient Egypt, we will call ANKHCESTORS. Unfortunately, where the Black people had 3 words to express this reality of the Logos, in the Bible we have only 1 word, has the confusion which is there. The celestial Logos is called the Christ. The temporal manifestation of the Logos is called also the Christ. The Christ has abiding in one man, gives him the title of being also a Christ. So we have Christ, so it leads to confusion. Now, we must understand that the Christ is truly the manifestation of the fullness of God in the child of God. Jesus, in his lifetime, was the person who manifested that Logos at the highest point. I say in his lifetime, because in her lifetime, it is Simon Kimbangu who was the highest manifestation of the Christ. So the notion of the Logos is the equivalent of the notion of the Christ, not to be confused with Jesus. The last point of convergence between both theism is the notion of the existence of lower divinities, the divinities of the temporal level. The highest one in Kôngo is called Kôngo. That is the highest divinized ancestor. In ancient Egypt, such a divinity was called dead God. In Christianity, you have also those holy ancestors. It is seen in Jesus telling us to pray by addressing the Father who are in heavens, that is in the temporal realm. And we have seen that in his tales during the transfiguration, those who appeared were Moses and Elisha, his ancestors. And Hebrew chapter 12, verse 23 speaks of these ancestors as spirits of the right ones made perfect. They were made perfect. It means that they were like you and me, and they were by purifying themselves, and they became holy ancestors. Due to his absolutely immutable nature, God is not the cause of the fall of the human being. This fall can only be the result of their own misuse of their God-given free will, because God is immutable. It follows that the supreme purpose of human beings is to restore their divinity. Now, having been separated from God, from all of the good, human beings can regain their divinity only by the activity of the Logos acting around and in them. To become again a child of God through the Logos But the way of the purification of thoughts is the supreme purpose of religion in African traditional religion as in Christianity. In Christianity, this is seen in 1 John chapter 3, verses 1 to 3, where it is said, we are children of God, but what we shall be have not yet been manifested. Now what we shall be is children of God, because we are so now potentially, we shall be so in a manifest way on the condition of purifying ourselves. And you have the same teaching in Bukôngo, in the myth of Mahungu. Mahungu lost his divine nature due to disobedience. And the way for him to regain it is not by human means, but by purification. And we have same schema in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Osiris Ani claimed the right to be an Osiris, but he was called Ani Osiris already. This means that he was Osiris only potentially, and he worked by purifying himself. Therefore, he claims the right to be an Osiris in a manifest way. In all those three religions, the purpose, the highest purpose, is for the initiate to become a child of God, an Osiris. Why does this convergence not appear between the different trends of African traditional religion and Christianity? The answer is very simple. Wisdom has led our ancestors to divide the practice of religion into two. First of all, you have the divine practice, that of the minority and the elite, which is today the Bêto and mainly the Bukôngo. I mean spiritual elite. And the human practice, that of the majority of the Africans. It is in the divine practice, which is the quintessence of African traditional religion, and where religion is an exact science. It is in these trends that the convergence is seen. Therefore, there is an area of convergence between Christianity and African traditional religion. This appears in the theism of these two religions and in their supreme purpose to cause the humans to become again children of God. To practice Christianity in this area of convergence allows African Christians to be in harmony with the religion of their ancestors and not betray them. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share. More on this subject can be found on my books available at Amazon.